The Empower Hour series was created for all of the women out there who have done everything they were supposed to do in life and are struggling to discover what's next. I see you. You know there's so much more out there, but you just don't know how to align with what's next for you. Well, you're not going to struggle anymore. It's time for you to create your new path and fall in love with your life over and over again. See that badass woman over there who has discovered what's next for her? Let's go ask her to share how she did it and become inspired. And if she can discover what's next, so can you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the EmpowHER Hour series. In this episode, we have an incredible guest with a very inspirational story. Her name is Amy Hoang, and Amy has to start out with an intro to Amy, Amy had a really unexpected life shift happen during the pandemic, but that life shift essentially enabled her to take a leap of faith towards a passion that she had discovered and allowed her to walk away from her career as a pharmacist. So welcome, Amy, to our show.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course. So I'm sure after that intro, people are wondering, oh my gosh, what happened that allowed Amy to step into the space of what she's doing now, which we certainly will get to. But why don't you take us back to the beginning? I talked about how you shared with me how you started your career as a pharmacist. And I'm just curious I want our viewers to understand what that process was like for you. How did you end up in that field?
Yeah, so I started with pharmacy when I was, 20 years old. I always knew I wanted to be in the medical field. And my parents had this vision for me where, going to school and work a good job, graduate and work for the next 40 years or so and retire. And so I was very afraid of blood. So medical was out of the question. And so pharmacy was next up, and I started working in the pharmacy as a technician. So that's where I got exposed to the pharmacy retail stores. And then I went to pharmacy school. While I was in pharmacy school, I started doing a bunch of different side hustles so that I can pay for books and just to kind of cover living expenses. And so I listened to a bunch of different podcasts and I dabbled into a lot of different things online. But then one day I heard of this couple who was buying things on retail shelves, like at clearance stores and also at thrift stores. And they were reselling it on Amazon for a profit. So I was like, cool, I can do that. That seems like something that's doable. So I went to my nearest Walmart and I just picked up some stuff that was on the clearance rack and resold on Amazon. It just sold like the next day. So I was like, this thing works, right? Yeah, it kind of validated for me almost like instantaneously. And so while I was in pharmacy school, I did, all that, and it helped pay for books and a little bit of living expenses, but it was nothing to write home about. And fast forward a few years later, I graduated and then I started working as a full-time retail pharmacist, and life happened and we just kind of paused our business for a while until the pandemic happened a year ago, which I can't believe it's been a year. But
I know it went so fast, but it didn't at the same time.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And if you're listening to this live, it's been a year in the making of the coronavirus. And at the beginning of it on March 2020, we'll never forget this day, my husband found out that he was laid off. And I was 7 months pregnant with our third child. And I was working full time, sometimes doing like 12-hour shifts on my feet. And sometimes I didn't even have time to use the restroom. This is why I was pregnant. And so
at 7 months pregnant, not having time in a 12-hour day to use the restroom.
Yeah. I remember sometimes I would go just like once a day because I would just forget, when your adrenaline is like rushing like crazy, you just forget to do everything, even eating, using the restroom. So I was doing that, and I did not hate my job. I actually enjoyed what I was doing, but it can get really stressful because people were getting their medication early because they didn't know what was coming. And so it was a very stressful time for everybody. And so my husband, while he was looking for a job because he was laid off, he had some time in his hand. So he was going back into the Amazon business. He was like, wow, I have all this time in my hands. Why don't we just make what we can do with what we know already? So
Mhm.
he spent this entire like 2, 3 months just doing Amazon full time while he was looking for another job. And it started to take off, like almost I couldn't even believe it because he had I guess it kind of was good timing because we had the knowledge. We've been selling for the last, I don't know, 5 years. And the
Mhm.
timing was good where more people were shopping online. And so he just started buying more stuff. And now instead of buying things that are on clearance, we're buying things off of retail shelf, like retail price. And we just resell it
Gotcha.
on Amazon and it just started selling like crazy. And so I was like, this is amazing. So why don't we both do this full time? So I gave birth during my maternity leave. I helped him for a couple months because, I was just on maternity leave and I had time. I didn't have to work the 12-hour shifts. So we both did
Mhm.
it full time for a few months and our business just took off like to a different level. And
Wow.
I never returned back to
Wow.
work. So it's been a crazy ride for the both of us, but that's how we got started and how we got back into it and where we are right now.
What an amazing story, because not only it sounds like from very early on you've had that entrepreneurial spirit, right? You said, yeah, I was always doing a side hustle, I was always doing something else in addition to the pharmacy work that you were doing. And this everything that happened, right? And I think your mindset when your husband lost his job during the pandemic, how you were 7 months pregnant, how devastating that must have been. And I always say that we have choices to make, even when it comes to our mindset, even when we don't feel like we're in control of circumstances. You certainly couldn't control that your husband had lost his job at that point, but you had the power and choice to be able to say, well, how can we look at this situation? It's devastating, it's a setback, I'm 7 months pregnant, I'm going to be on maternity leave myself soon. But instead of, and I'm sure that there was an element or moments of panic, what are we going to do? But now, because you had poured into this other area, this other job, this other passion of building this other space in your life, your husband was able to shift into that. So you took something that was essentially devastating, that you didn't have control over, and you shifted into a space of, wow, look at what we have, look at what we can continue to grow and build. And I think that that's so incredible, because that really proves the power of choice right there.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. And it's all about our mindset and how we deal with a situation. So we can either panic or we can shift our minds to see what else we can do. Because I think in a time that we are in trouble and there's a lot of problems, that's where the best solutions come out of. You can either panic and worry, or you can think about the situation and then yeah, maybe worry for a little bit, but then go on and see what else you can do about it. And we can absolutely just sit there and mope all day, and I can complain about, my life is terrible. And I think a lot of people don't understand that sometimes there's that gift that it's about to happen to us, and it's just that one moment that can change your entire life. And if you pass by it and the opportunity has gone by, it's really hard to get it back. Like we had just said, okay, you lost your job, let's go find you another job. And then I'll just continue my pharmacy work that I wasn't, completely happy about. I would have been finding myself continue working a 9 to 5 for maybe the next 40 years. And that's kind of like the mindset that my parents wanted to instill in me. So it's something that was external getting to me by my upbringings, and sometimes that it is something that you want to do. And I don't want to kind of talk down on the parents who are trying to have a good career for their kids, because I know that that's what my parents always wanted for me, and so I listened to them. But then when you're older, you kind of can think for yourself, right? And now you're starting to explore a bunch of different things. And to the contrary of what you were saying earlier, I actually never had the entrepreneurial bug. It was my husband who kind of like hit me with it, which
Ah.
is the funniest thing ever, because I made him go back to work after he used to do real estate, which is funny, back
Oh,
in the
okay.
early 2000s. And then, the market crashed. And so he had to go back to work. He's in IT, so he's a software developer. And And then all of a sudden I'm the one who's like doing all of this like side hustle and got back him into it again. So it's funny how things just work out.
100%, absolutely. And I was actually writing down as you were speaking, Amy, when you referenced the fact that when we have problems, right, that's where our best solutions sometimes can be realized. And I wanted to highlight what you said there again, because it's perspective for sure. And I think so many people, and especially, I know a lot of our viewers and a lot of women in particular, who I work with, what I often hear them saying when they come to my door is they've had a difficult time seeing any options. They've had a difficult time with their perspective because some of them speak to what you were spoken to when you were growing up. And I'm in the same category as you. Parents had the expectation that you check all the boxes, right? You do everything you're supposed to do. You go to school, you get the education, you get the family, you get the house, you get the, maybe not in that order, but you have all of these things that you're supposed to do. And even if you have a spark to do something else, even if you have a spark and you do a side hustle, part of you might think sometimes, well, it's nice to have a side hustle, but I can never do this full time. This isn't I've had people say to me, like, I can't do that because I need a real job, or I need a real career, or I need because I think we have this box kind of thinking, right? This inside the box thinking where all of those things we're supposed to do, sometimes the things that are outside of the box don't fall into those categories, right? Because there's risk involved, or there's other things that come with that we're not, it's not ingrained in us, that we were not brought up in that way. So I think a lot of times what happens is when people have this spark, whether they want to do a side hustle or a passion project, or whether they want to eventually leave a career and start to do something completely independent of anything and be their own boss, I think there's that fear because, well, wait a minute, this is not what I was supposed to do, or how am I supposed to do this, or what happens if? And I think that's what blocks people, which then blocks the opportunities that you're speaking about. So when I'm having difficulties or problems, my solution might be, well, we need to find another job. I'll keep working for another 40 years, but maybe there's other options that until you're able to see the big picture, you're going to have those blinders on. You're not going to be able to see what those options might be for you. And it sounds like from where you came from with your story, what happened in your family, you were able to see the options despite, and not be blocked by the problems that were occurring, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And when you were saying thinking outside the box, it made me think about somebody who came to me recently, like this week, because I said something during one of my lives in the group where you kind of have to think outside your box, because our business is a product-based business, right? And sometimes we're kind of stuck on this mindset that we need to spend a certain amount to make a certain amount. But they never thought about spending a little bit more to make more, because they're
Right.
afraid of the risk, the failure, and the uncertainty, right? So once they kind of took that risk, but also it's a calculated risk, and it's also like a gut thing. They're like, Amy, I didn't even think we can make more money by spending a little bit more. And I'm like, that's the thing, that it kind of unlocks a lot of people's mindset, that once you are open to taking a little bit of a higher risk, then there's so many different opportunities out there. And failure is something that will happen. Like it's not even a question. I failed, I don't even know how many times now, but each time I fail, I learn something from it, and it becomes such a good learning experience. And I go back and I tell somebody else about it to prevent them from making the same mistakes. And I think that's just how our nature works. And I think that's how the universe works too. You do something and then you learn from other people. I didn't learn all of this by myself. It's from listening to other people, reading books, and listening to podcasts, or connecting with other people who are so much more smarter than me. So that's how I usually learn about new things.
Yeah, that's, oh my gosh, you just dropped so many good gold nuggets there when you were talking. I think going off of what you just said too, I don't have to know it all, right? I don't need to know everything. There are other places I can look. So if I'm not sure how to do something, somebody else there does know, and maybe I need to have them in my community and learn from them. You know, the embracing the failure that comes along the way. You know, when I step into a new space, when I'm trying something new, when I'm doing something, you know, for the first time, second time, third time, I have to expect that there's going to be some sort of failure along the way, but not be afraid of that, because that's going to enable me to grow in a different way. If I don't, and I think that's what prevents a lot of people from stepping into new places, new paths, new, you know, because that fear of failure. Well, what if I don't, you know, what if I don't succeed at this? Or what are people going to think of me? Or what if I'm not the best? Or there's other people out there who are doing this better than I am. And that all is such a blocker that gets in the way. So I love that you just said, I failed at things. I haven't done things well, but what I do from that is not only do you learn from it, but you take that and you speak to other people about it so that they don't necessarily run into the same the same, you know, the same barricades that you ran into. So I think that that's so important, and I'm so grateful that you brought that up.
Yeah. Everything that we fail, it's all part of our journey, right? So even if somebody who decide that maybe business is not for me, but they just want to dabble in it, and they want to learn and make the mistakes along the way, it's their mistakes. It's, you know, we can't teach everybody everything. We just try to do what we can to prevent them from making all the big failures. And I wish I had a coach or somebody back in the day, or I wish I had just, you know, not have such high standards and think that I can do everything back in the day. I would have been able to save so much money and time too, because time is everything. Once you lose it, you can't
Yes.
really get it back. So I love what you said about getting, you know, if you learn from other people who's been there before you too, it's so valuable. And nowadays, like I have a coach, I have a mentor,
Great.
and
Yes.
these are the people, and yet I have colleagues who I learn from, and you know, kind of like not a mastermind group. I don't do those anymore. I
Right.
used to, but
Right.
nowadays I just like to chit chat with people like you and I, and a lot of things come out of it. Like you spark some type of inspiration or idea. You just never know what kind of people you're gonna do. You'll meet and what type of ideas will come out of it. So
Absolutely. I agree. And I love, and again, going, you know, having said, I heard you reference a lot. Now you have a coach, now you have a mentor, you have somebody that you've invested in. But way back, you said, I wish I would have done that sooner. And, you know, when we talk about investment, and you referenced this, you know, a while back when you were talking about spending money to make money, right? Having to invest a little bit more. And I think that you know, to what you're saying, when we want to make a shift or a change in our life, oftentimes we have to make an investment in some capacity. And that could be, as you referenced, it could be our time that we're sacrificing, right? We have to invest in ourselves. We have to create space, we have to create time. We all have 24 hours. What am I going to sacrifice in order to pour into what it is that I'm passionate about? And or I don't know everything. I don't have to know everything when I'm first starting out. There's many people who have done this before me. There are many people who work with people like me to help me take these steps. And rather than spin my wheels and try to figure it out on my own, certainly there's power in doing that. But I feel like our power is almost better served when we're doing what we're really good at. And if I understand that concept, and especially from what you had shared, Amy, from way back that when to right now, investing in somebody like a coach or a mentor is definitely a worthwhile investment, because they can see things through the lens that you cannot, and they can help you and enable you to take those steps forward. So again, I love that you were able to bring that up and reflect on your own journey and say, you know, if I had known then, I probably would have done this a little bit sooner.
yeah, my life, it would have happened with me the next year instead of the last 6 years that I kind of just let slip by. And I never regret, because I feel like regret is such a strong word. And I think if I
Yes.
didn't had gone through pharmacy school and gone through my career as a pharmacist, I probably wouldn't have been here today, Because I always told
Yep.
my husband, and I daydream like maybe if I hadn't, chose to go to pharmacy school and chose to, get into debt and all that stuff, maybe we would have been somewhere differently. And he was like, yeah, but we might not be here. We might, maybe in a different career. So
Yeah.
everybody, I always say it's kind of cliche, but everything really does happen for a reason. And the path that we chose, it is there already. So now all we got to do is just keep on looking forward and make things better. So, because that's all we can do.
That's absolutely right. No regrets, because every single step along your journey, whether it was what you considered a step back, whether it was a stumble, whether it was projecting you forward, enabled you to be where you are today, for sure. And I think that the sharing of your story and talking about, where you were, where you were and how you got to where you are now is so inspiring to other people to hear, because no regrets to where you are now, but saying, maybe the advice that you would give to somebody would be, if you can hire somebody to help you, or this is worth the investment, or definitely, sacrifice your time, all of the things that you figured out along the way, as you do. It sounds like with the women that come to you and the women that you help create their own Amazon businesses, their own, am I saying that correctly, like a
Yeah, their own
reselling business?
selling business. Yep, on Amazon.
Yeah. You're able to empower them and guide them in a way that you had to almost figure out on your own with your husband, right? And now they have more of a map when they align with you, and you can help walk them into those steps, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize that it seems like it was so smooth sailing for us. But in the beginning, like I said earlier, we made a lot of mistakes, but I guess I didn't tell you exactly what it was, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways to sell on Amazon. And we started with just kind of the reselling with the clearance items, right? But then we jumped right into doing private label, which is it's just a process of making your own product and branding, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of
Oh,
time.
okay.
But we did that route too, but we wish we hadn't done that because it took a
Okay.
lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy. And I know a lot of people jumping into Amazon, that's probably the first thing that they think of because that's the popular route. And some people out there will tell you, yeah, you can definitely make money. And I believe that that does help make a lot of people money. But if you are just starting out and you don't have a lot of money to invest and a lot of time either, I would say don't start with that, but start with the retail arbitrage side of things. And that's where it
Oh.
kind of gets the results a lot faster because you can see like the first time I was doing it, I saw a sale like the next day. But then I was looking at I guess I was trying to do like a long-term building like an audience, and I had no
Hmm.
experience doing that. And I was like, what am I even doing here? I just typed in and I started an Instagram account. I did the whole like outsourcing and importing, and it was a big mess. So I learned a lot of different things along the way. So people who are kind of jumping in right now and they find themselves stuck, I always tell
Hmm.
them that there's always your own journey, and you're gonna make your own mistakes. And along the way, if you don't give up and maybe you connect with other people, ask a lot of good questions, there's no such thing as dumb questions because if you have that,
Right.
somebody else had probably had the same question. So you're helping somebody else out by, being able to ask that question either in the community or with another mentor or coach. And that's how you learn. That's how so many people find themselves successful because they're willing to share their knowledge. They're willing to connect with other people and kind of open themselves out there. And I think it's just having an online business or behind the computer, it's kind of a lonely business. So we always
Hmm.
have to connect with other people and be resourceful because things changes all the time, especially on Amazon. It's changing every single day.
Yes.
So if you don't keep up with information, you're going to be behind. Just like everything else, as you know, you have to be always
Right.
on top of it, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so being very, that's how I try to encourage people to not give up because you can easily just not see results for like a week, 2 weeks, because sales are slow. And then you're like, oh,
Hmm.
it's not going to work. But you have to look at it as like a whole, like a big picture. Like for us, we look at
Right.
it as monthly, sometimes even quarterly, to see if we have met
Okay.
goals. Because if you look at day by day by day, it's going to kill you because you're always going to be just focusing on like laser focus on like the minute details that will not
Right.
anywhere. So that's just a little word
Right.
of advice.
Right. It's about the process, right? It's about the process and not about necessarily the outcome. Yes, of course, we always want the outcome that we anticipate, but what is our process like along the way? And how am I meeting every single day with my business, right? I think that that's so important. And I want to go back to what you had said that, you I think it's so powerful to have shared, this wasn't always smooth sailing and the bumps that you hit along the way, because I think that's the reality of these journeys, that we might have something in mind that we want to do. You creating the products, the original products, right, that you wanted to sell, and recognizing that whereas that was probably amazing to a point, that you realize that, well, selling just reselling retail things might be a better space to step into to do what we want to do. And there are so many stumbling blocks along the way. Things aren't and really shouldn't be smooth sailing, because really, what are you going to learn along the way, right? And although it's really difficult sometimes to think about the the stumbles that I'm going to take, and the quote unquote failures, or the things that I think are going to work out but they don't work out and I have to shift my gears, I think that's how you become better, and that's how you grow, and that's how you learn, and I feel like it keeps it exciting and keeps the momentum fresh.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to to kind of go back with what we talked about in the beginning, having this career change and having
Yes.
the mindset and the shift, it was never easy. I don't want to downplay how difficult it
Yep.
was for me to make this decision. Well, with my husband, it was kind of easy. He was already off, and he was
Right.
doing this already out of not by choice, but he just never got back to his job either. But for me, I was working full time. Sometimes I even worked like 50 hours a week and 55, 60 hours a week. And so I was very much invested in my career to the point where I never thought I would quit. This is what I'm going to be doing forever. But there was something, I guess, like a intuition inside of me that said that there is
Mhm.
more out there for me and for my family. And so I did it very slowly. I went from full time, I mean, overtime to
Mhm.
full time to part time. And then I became an on call pharmacist. So I was at the point where I only worked like 1 hour a month just to kind of stay in the system, right?
Yeah.
And then did I say 1 hour? I meant like one day a month. And I, even with just 1 day a month, I felt like I couldn't even take it because if you're not working every single day, you kind of have to retrain yourself to do certain things when you're
Okay.
work, right? So I would spend a whole day previously to coming into work, just getting ready for work, and then while I'm at work,
Okay.
I'm doing this 8 to 12 hour shift. So when I'm done, I'm exhausted. I come home and I'm
Yeah.
resting for maybe 2, 3 days, and I saw that the business was suffering, and so we had
Okay.
down, and my husband and I had to make the difficult decision to continue this or just let go, resign, and help to build our own business. And so we had to make that decision, and we sat down and weighed the pros and the cons, and eventually we just said we I had to quit. Otherwise, we saw
Yep.
like a decline in the business like almost immediately because I was
Wow.
taking, what, 5 days to prepare, to work, and then to rest after my shift.
Yep.
And this is just one day a
Yeah.
month working. So I can
Right.
see the struggle with a lot of people who, maybe they're at a full-time job and maybe it's labor intensive. So they come home and they're tired, but there's a way, there's a will. And I think
Yep.
everybody who believe in themselves and believe in the process and can dream big and kind of see the
Yes.
vision way far from, kind of like telling themselves that they are already there, it
Yep.
becomes a lot
Yes.
easier for it to happen, right? Like manifesting.
Yes.
I know all about
Yes.
Yeah, so that's so important because at some point I kind of have to trick my brain a little bit to make it believe that I'm already an entrepreneur. I'm already at a point where I'm happy and I'm doing everything that I love. And that kind of got me to where I am today. And so if you're in the struggle, you're in the rut, I really encourage you to maybe carve out just 2 or 3 hours a week to work on your side hustle, whatever it is you want to
Yes.
do. Maybe it doesn't have to be making money, something that you love to do, a hobby that
Hmm.
can maybe turn into another career. You just never know. So that's
That's
something
right.
that has kind of been like life changing for me, like the manifestation of just knowing that it's there and you're going to get there one day.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And that whole concept of visualizing yourself already there, having that, you referenced that, right? Having that thought, that really taking time to visualize yourself in the space that you want to be in, and just keeping that in here, keeping that locked inside, and keep going back to that. Because if I can visualize it and I can see it, I can get there and I can do it. It might take a while, it might take some time. I love the transition that you went through. It wasn't I'm working, full time, and all of a sudden now I'm not. No, there was a decline. You were working full time, you went to part time, you were on call, but you realized that it was so draining. And that enabled you, amongst everything, all of the other steps that you spoke about, to walk away. So it wasn't an overnight decision. This was something that took a while to be able to realize, but you had that intuition that this was not the pharmacy industry was not where you felt whole. It wasn't where you felt passionate. It was this other space that you're in now, right? And
Yeah.
you were able to put steps in place to be able to get there over time, which was not easy, but you were able to keep consistent with that because you knew that you could visualize yourself where you are now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so important to have a good mindset and have
Hmm.
somebody that you can talk to too. Maybe it's your partner,
Hmm.
maybe it's a friend, it's a family member, but someone to discuss this too is so important. My husband happened to be my business partner. So we, sometimes we chat over lunch, over dinner, and all the time. Sometimes if I have a struggle, I go to him for a therapy session, and, and he helps me out. And it's just we it's just so important because we as human beings we crave having this social interaction. That's why I think COVID was just it was just so dangerous for a lot of people because it cut
Yep.
out that lifeline that we all need. And so
Yep.
with anything, especially with a new venture like a business, you have to have somebody that you can rely on, that you can just talk to when times are tough, and they will bring you up again and have that, give you that motivation to continue going, because you're going to have those bad days, those bumps
Yep.
along the way. It's inevitable. So might as well
Yes.
make it enjoyable and have somebody who you can talk to during the way to get you there and where you want to be.
Absolutely. And that's such a helpful advice too, that, and again, going back to, you're not in this alone. And whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, whether it's a partner, whether it's whoever, right? A business coach, a family member, having somebody to be your sounding board that you can bounce off of ideas, or you can just talk to when you're feeling overwhelmed and drained, so you don't have to keep it in. That's so important to everything we do in life, but in particular when you're stepping into a new space, there's definitely a need for that, for sure, and someone who's going to be excited for you too.
Yeah, yeah, it's so
you know
important to celebrate those the small wins are the ones that you know propel you to get to the big wins. So in the group that
Absolutely.
we have, yeah, the women sellers group, even though the things that people celebrate are so small, like, oh, I made my first sale, or oh, I got my account up and running, everybody's there to celebrate. And you have the sense of community that other people
Yes.
are, congratulating you. And it just makes it so much easier. And so I think as women too, we just love to celebrate everything, right? Everything
Yes,
is
we do.
celebrated. So yeah, that's very important to kind of catapult ourselves and also to kind of trick our minds to get us up to the next level.
Absolutely. A sense of community is so important, and surrounding yourself with other people, or in particular, as we are both women, as you said, and surrounding yourself with women who are building you up, not viewing you as a competition, And I think the more and more, the older I get and the community spaces I step into, I rarely do see competition. I see more people lifting each other and building each other up, because that's so key, and that's so crucial to everything, right? We want to be in that place. Even if somebody's doing the exact same thing you're doing, you are a completely different person and they're doing it a little bit different. And it's really important to support each other, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love that you said that even though we do the same thing, we can still be friends, right? Because there's room
Yeah,
for everybody to grow. And it's the community, it's the way that the universe works, that even if I'm in the same space as you, my story, my journey is going to be different. And I'm, like you said,
that's
I'm
right.
going to have a little bit of, like, how I'm doing things is going to be different. And I think people crave the authenticity and the genuine, activity that we have these days. People can kind of see from a mile away if you're not being authentic. These days, your radar for people being fake is just like so out there, and it's very high. So people will put their guards up if they know that you're not, if they can't trust you, because people only do
Mm-hmm.
business with people they trust and they love and they have interaction with. So with me, I've learned this. I just started, I don't even know why, I just started knowing this from this year of being online, that with the community that we've had, people come to me, and now we have zero promotion. We don't have any capital or money to pay for advertising, but we still
Okay.
have people joining the group, which I don't even know why. So I realized it's because now people are inviting their friends to come, because they know that this is
Yes.
a safe space. It's a place where they can ask questions, they can learn, and they don't have to be like sold to, all day long. And
Right.
and people buy from people they trust too. So
That's right.
and I realized, I was like, why did I try so hard before? If people, if they know you and they trust you, they'll just buy from you. And so this is where the Women Sellers Academy kind of grew out of that need in the community, where someone was like, I need to know how to do this, and I need to know how to do it in step by step. And so that's where
Mm-hmm.
the Women Sellers Academy came from. And then there was another service that was also brought on by somebody in the group, suggesting to, like, for me to kind of help them find products. And I was like, yeah, I can help you find products, and we can try it as like a subscription and see if you like it or not. And then now it kind of blew up into this thing where it's like replacing my income now. And it's
Wow.
yeah, like as a pharmacist. So this is aside from the e-commerce. This is just
Right.
the service-based business for women sellers. So now we have, and I love to talk about diversifying your income later on, but this is where we kind of took our e-commerce business, so we know how to do it, and then we're teaching them, and now we're actually doing it for them. And all they do is pay us like a subscription base. And I've never done anything like this in my entire life. And it's only been around
Wow.
for, what is this, our fifth month now, and it had already almost like, well, it already surpassed my income as a pharmacist. But I never thought that this is like the power of human interaction, and it's
Yes.
this genuine connection that we have, that all of a sudden in between money comes in, right, without us even
Mm-hmm.
having to sell ourselves. So I think that's all about,
Yeah.
it's more is about giving than about selling.
Right.
And so
Right.
yeah, one of my favorite books is actually called The Go Giver. You've heard of
Oh,
go getters, right? So this is the opposite of that,
yes.
go giver.
Oh,
And I
go giver. I love
love
that.
this,
I'm
and I
writing it
love
down.
this book. So the go getter, I mean the go giver by Bob Byrne has changed my life. I think I read it about four times now, and I keep on getting, every
Wow.
time I read it, I learn something new about it, because it just teaches you that you just need to give, and the more you give, the more it'll come back to you naturally. And I've seen this kind of like over and over again. Every single time I'm about to launch something, I just have to kind of keep on asking myself, like, is this something that they need? And is it something that is going to benefit them before it benefits me? And
Yes.
when I see dollar signs everywhere, it just never works out. And I'm just like, why did I even try? So I just let
So
it,
that's your sign. That's when you know it, you need to step away from there.
yeah. And even if I'm already invested in it, just put it aside. And when it is, the timing is right, and when people need it, it will automatically come to you. And so I really love that book. And yeah, if you read it, I think it's also on Audible. I like to listen to I have the actual hard copy, but the Audible book
Okay.
is really good too. It's narrated by the actual
Awesome.
author, so it's really cool.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that recommendation, Amy, The Go-Giver. I'm going to definitely check that out. It sounds like a great book. And look at the community that you built, right? You've built this incredible community of women sellers. And I think it's almost like a full circle moment, because as you said earlier on in our discussion, you wish that there was somebody that could have kind of mentored you along the way to guide you. And now you're doing exactly that for these other people, these other women who are stepping into this space. You created almost, it sounds like almost unintentionally, you created this, is it a course? It's a group, it's a course?
Yeah, it's a course, but then there's also a next step of after you take the course, you need to know what type of products to buy. And if you
Okay.
need help with that, then that's where the service comes in. That's the pod.
Okay, that's awesome. So you almost unintentionally created this, and I feel like it's so full circle, right? Because what you were lacking, what you were missing, and you had to discover independently. Now you're creating for somebody else, so they don't have to go through that step. You've created that for them, which is super incredible.
Yeah, yeah. It just came out of the need of the community. So I think it was just it's so amazing how things work out without you even planning it.
Yeah,
Because at first I just
yeah.
needed a community of women who knew what I was thinking and weren't going to laugh at me if I was asking a dumb question. And because
Hmm.
this selling community, I'm going to tell you, it's very heavily male dominated. And I
Okay.
was in like one of those big groups 5 years ago, and I would ask them questions, and people would laugh at me and be like, this is a newbie question, get out of here. And then
Oh, that's awful.
yeah, so I just pose a question like, is anyone here a woman seller? And would you like to just kind of make a group, and so that we could just bounce ideas off each other? And in one day, I had 2,000 people signed up.
Holy,
And
oh my,
yeah,
2,000?
yeah. So
Wow.
I didn't even know. So I had to get some moderators, and that was 5 years ago. And I kind of abandoned that for 5 years, and now we're starting back up again. And
Wow.
we're growing it like very organically and naturally. But back then I didn't even know anything about like opening a group. Like you asked me, I just wanted some people to talk to and maybe connect
Yeah.
with like around my local area. And so that's where the community came out of. And so I don't know if anybody of your audience are the type that's trying to transition into a career online or maybe building an
Hmm.
but listen to what other people have to ask from you and see what they need
Yes.
and build your service around them. And once
Yes.
they're going to tell you exactly what they want. And then if
You
you
have to be listening, right? When
have
you're
to be
listening.
listening, yes, yes, 100%. You need to be a really good listener. And if it's something that you're capable of doing and that you know that you can provide results for them. So that's the important thing. You can't just listen and act on something that you're not sure about, right? You need to
Yep.
have some knowledge about it. And you have to trust yourself that you are
Yep.
a leader and you know your information. You believe that this is going to work for other people, because I know there's a lot of people out there who just keep on giving information, but it's bad information. And
Yes.
I just feel so bad for people who actually buy this stuff and they're wasting their money. So yeah, so I know everybody has a gift, a talent, and they just kind of have to figure it out along the way. Because if you asked me 5, 10 years ago, I'm going to be a reseller, I'll be like, get out of
You
here.
wouldn't have believed them, right? You would have been like,
Yeah,
no, I'm going to be in what I'm doing for the next 40 years or whatever
yeah,
for until I retire. And I love that, right? That, you know, being able to step into something and being able to ask the right questions and seek the right information and just go for it, right? And you never know where you're going to end up, but being open to hearing all of that information, being open to what is coming your way, because sometimes when we're so afraid or we have those blinders up, we miss so many opportunities. And certainly to your question, a lot of the listeners that we have here are women who are in that process, right? They have that spark that keeps lighting up inside of them. They know that they want to do something about it, whether it's a passion project, whether it's a business, whether it's keeping their current career, but stepping into something else that feeds that fire and that spark, but oftentimes getting halted along the way because they expect that they should know how to do it, or they don't know how to get started. So I love that you were here, and I love hearing your story, Amy, and everything that you shared. And I'm a huge manifester too, so I think that all of those gems, you dropped so many gems throughout this interview, and I certainly appreciate you spending your time and space and energy here with us today. So my question to you too is, as we're talking in this interview, and I'm sure listeners are saying, oh my gosh, like Amy, not only are you inspiring, but I'm kind of curious and interested about how I can get in touch with you, maybe to talk to you a little bit more about what you do. Maybe people are now interested in pursuing that or learning about that themselves, and or if they want to reach out to you to maybe ask you some follow-up questions about this interview, and to just to hear a little bit more from you. What is the best way that people can get in touch with you? We're going to drop those links below, but if you just want to verbally say it, and then people can go ahead and follow the links.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way, I'm always on Facebook, and the group is Woman Sellers. So if you type in the search bar on Facebook, Woman Sellers, it will be the first one that pops up. And you can send me a DM. I love to chat with people in the direct messages. And you can also email me at hello@womansellers.com. And
Okay.
lastly, but not, this is not least, but I don't think I put it this link, but I have a guide that if people just have 5 minutes to read, it will kind of give them an overall picture of what this business is all about, and kind of give you an idea
Great.
too if it's something that you would like to do. So it's womansellers.com/guide. So that's where they can grab that. 100% free, and all you got to do, I think, is just put in your email address and your name, and it will get into your inbox. So I forgot about that. It's been a while.
Well, you go ahead and email me that link, and we're going to put it below as well, because why not? I love when people offer some free information, and I'm sure there are viewers out there who are wanting to jump into that and see what that's all about too. So so as we wrap up, if you guys as you were listening to Amy's story and the conversation, if you're in that space and you're saying, oh my gosh, like I want to step out onto a new path as well, but I just don't know how to get started. I always offer free discovery calls. If the link is dropped below, so you can schedule it on your own, where we can find out what your passion is, what you're excited about, or get you started on a path to discover that yourself through my What's Next Project 90-day program. So thank you so much, Amy, for being here again. And remember, guys, just because you've done everything in life that you're supposed to do does not mean that you've done everything that you're meant to do. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I can't believe it's been an hour already, but it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Of course. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.